Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another straight up solo. In this episode, we are going to look at Vantage. I'm going to talk to you about how this game works without spoilers of really any kind. Very little information will be shared with you that isn't available already in a rule book or something like that. So don't worry. You'll be able to get a good feel of what this game is like without me spilling any beans. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, folks, and as usual, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And if you haven't, really do appreciate the support. Thank you very much. So, what is this game about? Well, it is absolutely a game about exploration. There's no doubt about it. This is a choose your own adventure kind of game with some mechanics that help you to either kind of win or lose, make progress. Always is going to happen, but whether you're going to be penalized by that progress is what the game's really all about. Okay, so what's going to happen is the basic gist of the game is that you are placed on a planet that is completely foreign to you, and you're kind of scattered in this planet in a random way. Okay, and you will get, based on how you set things up with random dice rolling, a place to go to start, okay? And then that place is what you see here, right? So this will kind of give you a little description, and then it'll tell you to roll some dice, which are these dice right here. And these dice will, they're called skill dice, but basically right now what they're doing is they're just kind of guiding you to certain card entries. And in this game, you have tons and tons and tons of possible cards, okay? There's loads of them. All right. All these horizontal long cards over here represent locations you can go to in the game. They're front and back. They're two-sided. And then all these shorter cards, or smaller ones, represent either items or quests or curses or all sorts of other things that might happen to you along the way. Cards you put in your supply, missions, destiny goals, etc. So that's basically the format of the content. But then you get all of these books. And these books are all referencing the number card, and they are referencing a specific type of action that you will be taking. So for instance, on this card, which I've hidden, this card, and every card, you could take 6 different types of actions, okay? Plus you can depart from the card, meaning you basically leave it. So you can evade what's on the card, you can examine what's on the card, you can befriend what's on the card, you can share with what's on the card, you can gather from where you are on the card, and you can attack what's on the card. Those are just some of the versions of what is more generally an overpower action, for instance, or an engage action, like this orange one, or a look action, like this purple, etc. Help, take, and then finally the move one, okay, at the top. So every card gives you the opportunity to do 6 different things on it. And the only clues that you have to what you're doing on the card is what you see in front of you. Now, you might have some idea from previous games, because this is not a campaign game. Every game you do is a once and done situation, and it's completely contained in itself. There's no carryover. So as you get familiar, I guess, with the writing style and the art style and this and that, you would get better at understanding kind of what you're in for if you decide to, for instance, evade versus befriend, which you see in this card, okay? But you just really don't know until you make the decision and you crack open the book. Now, when you crack open the book, let's take a look here at this examine, all right? But I'm not going to read the examine from this particular card. You would match it up to the card, and then it would give you a spot. And the spot says, okay, this examine action is going to require 2, all right? 2 right there. And that means it costs 2 to do whatever that action is. So you either spend it by having skill tokens of that type already in your bank here to reduce the cost, or you roll from the dice pool 2 dice. And you do this in every single situation. So you can read the cost and the action, but you don't read the result. You reduce it by paying the matching skill optionally, paid by any player that's there. In this case, it's all solo, it's you. That's what I'm talking about. Roll the dice, okay? And then you have to deal with what the dice do. So if I roll the dice, All right, so I got a heart and a time or an hourglass. What that means is that I have to assign these dice someplace. Now, if I had, and I'm just going to use this as an example because this is the starting character that one of the couple you might get. They have places to put the dice, okay? So if this would have been a blue action, if I had decided to evade, I could have placed one of these dice in this slot because it corresponds to a blue action. And that would have generated me a boost cube on this card. And as I grow in boost cubes, I can do other little things here, like trade 2 of them in for a credit, or trade 2 of them in for a skill, a move skill, or spend 1 boost to re-roll one of those dice. Maybe I don't like that result. Maybe I want to spend 1, which I don't have, and re-roll it and get something different. And in this case, this is what you want. You almost always want to see this slash or this dash, because that means nothing happens. But if you can't put the card down someplace, when you assign it to this challenge dice penalty area, you have to lose a heart or lose some time or lose some morale. And that could lead you to potentially losing the game. So if any of these 3 categories go to 0, you're then told to reference the mission and read the mission result in the take book. And that will give you some options of what to do. Some of them are, okay, you win the game because you fulfilled your mission. You got an epic victory because you fulfilled your mission and a destiny. You have, you lose the mission because, or you lose the game because you petered out and you had one of those go to 0. And there's even a choice like you felt like you got a rough go of it, and there's a way to kind of take one final chance to see if you can kind of reset things. Okay, so they give you some flexibility here. This isn't a game that you're just going to be punished like, oh, sorry, you lose, better luck next time. They do give you some options if you really feel like you got a lot of really bad rolls and nothing you can do about it. So I do like that they built that in. All right, so after you're going to do the action, you read the result and you get whatever it says. Sometimes it gives you something, sometimes it takes you someplace else. It tells you to move to a different spot. Sometimes it just gives you information about the card, and it will say you may continue. And that means you can take another action on the card that you haven't already taken. But usually every single card is a one and done action. You do one action, then you got to move to a different card, and you can't do any other actions on that card again in the same game. And the reason they're doing that is that they're trying to force you to explore and go on to something else. Plus, a lot of the narrative stuff is kind of like the action you take is if there's no option to continue, it's kind of like I did something that will now change the card state, and I don't have the other options anymore. So, for instance, if I attack what's on this card, all right, we've wrestled, whatever, we fought, we did this, we did that. We're not going to have a chance to befriend. I'm not going to have a chance to evade him. It's already too late. Okay, and so a lot of cards are written that way, but some of them aren't, and it's just like, okay, you just got to move on. And I actually kind of like that because otherwise, I think just the gamer in me would say, well, I got to do every single thing on this card before I go on. And that wouldn't be a whole lot of choice, right? That would just be like, well, I work from top to bottom, or I do a couple things. I do like the feeling that you have to make one choice and then you have to live with the result. Now, you will always pass the test, meaning you're going to get whatever you did, but you may have to lose things along the way. So I also like that too. There's no fail action in this game. It's just that it's going to potentially drain some of your morale or your health or your time. And as those drain down, of course, that risks you losing the game. So that is kind of cool. I do like the way that the designer put that into the gameplay loop. All right. Now, what's over here? And these are all flipped over on purpose because I don't want to spoil anything. But what this is this is a grid around your character. And this grid is a big part of the game because if you fill it up, you get some different destiny missions, or one in particular, that will be one way you could complete the game with a victory. But also, the cards, and the more cards you get, they have additional slots with different types on them that will help you mitigate the rolls that you have to put things in different places, to get more boosts, to deal with bad effects, etc. And so the more cards you have, the more flexibility you have. Because what's going to happen is you have to keep pulling out of this situation here and keep assigning things, so to speak, until you go to do a challenge and you don't have enough dice in the pool. So let's say I had to do a challenge and I needed to roll 3 dice and I only had 2. Then I would reset all of these and start again. So what it does is it puts a loop out there where you're trying to fill up the little spaces over here in your grid, because every time you fill those up, in most cases, you're going to get some type of reward, or it's just some type of help. And the ways to fill up the cards sometimes can be pretty specific too. So let's see if I can find one without revealing anything. So if I look at this one means I can only fill it up if I was taking a learn action. That's a purple action with the word learn on it. All right, but if I do that, then that counts as kind of like a space where I can, belay one of these bad things from happening to me. Here, if I take a purple action, I roll a star, I actually generate a boost for this card, which is good because then I can spend that boost to do what the card says, etc. And so that's a cool little mechanic over here. Then you have these cards over to the side, and these are like quests or story or mission and not destiny cards, but there are other things that you're doing that you're trying to accomplish in the game, which would ultimately lead to something bigger, okay? And I'll put it that way. So that is what the game is like. You are basically going from one location to another, assessing the location as best you can from the art and the little bit of a narrative that it says, making a choice, looking up what the choice is going to cost you, seeing how much that cost might penalize you, resolving the choice, going to the next thing, all right? And the only other action I didn't talk about is that besides actions you can take on these cards right here, you can also take actions that are listed on your card, all right? And when you do that, you literally reference the card number and the action you're trying to take. Same thing with this, like this mission number and the action you're trying to take here, this one and this. So you could take actions over there. And then finally, the depart action is basically where you leave the location. And that usually costs one single blue action to do, unless it has an asterisk, and then you read from the depart story and then figure that out. And that's what you're doing the whole time until you complete the game, until you end the game. And when you end, you're the win or lose, depending on the situation that you find yourself in, based on what you've done with your mission, with your destiny, etc. All right, so let's see a couple other things. I mentioned that this symbol right here. This basically means the die is a miss. It's not a miss. It's like a blank. So nothing bad happens, which is great. This means that nothing bad happens, but you have to put it over here. And some cards might reference, if you have this, you might have to deal with a penalty, all right? But it basically goes back to this challenge pool, and it doesn't get exhausted, so it doesn't help you reset your cards over here. So these aren't that bad, but they don't make you any progress per se in freeing things up, okay? What you're really hoping for in most cases is this, or the specific icon that fits one of your open skills so you can kind of move things along on these cards. All right, so with that, what do I think about it? So first and foremost, I want to say that I believe that Vantage is a solo player only game. I know the box says 1 to 6, okay? But that would be like if you sat around a campfire and read a choose your own adventure that 6 people are reading from a book written in a similar fashion, but doing completely different things. Yes, there is a small amount of overlap in what you can do, but for the most part, you're walking around a very big world independently. So no, I do not recommend this as a multiplayer experience unless you just really want to sit and have some communal time with people that you know. But it's not like playing a cooperative game where you're all working to some kind of victory. It's just different. It definitely feels different. Now, yes, there's a way that if somebody completes a destiny and a mission, yes, you would technically win. And there's a way that if anyone goes to 0, you all lose, which I think is also even more frustrating in this sense of this type of game, because you could be playing just fine and someone could just blow it on you like, well, man, my character was doing okay and everything was fine here, and I didn't really have a way to help that person out directly, so there was nothing I could do. So again, this is, in my opinion, a solo-only game. The 1 to 6 thing is a dubious suggestion, in my opinion, all right? So, that aside, now, what about the game? If you like exploration, if you like the unknown narrative style game, this game does a great job there. It is not so much random as it is an unknown, okay? Because you aren't, I've seen people say this game is totally random. I can see why they're saying that, but they're not looking at maybe the subtleties in the game, and they're not understanding the spirit of the game in the first place. If you were reading a choose your own adventure game, you might find that that game is also like a book. You could find that that's completely random too. If you're reading a story, for instance, you could say, well, what happened to that character? It's sort of random. This is definitely a story based kind of game that is telling you not necessarily a narrative. It's more along the lines of like somebody would narrate watching somebody play a video game that's an open world game. You'll go to different places, you'll find different things, you've got some loose quests to do, but there's not a, it's much more about seeing what's around the next corner, seeing how to deal with the specific situation right in front of me. And what does that mean? I definitely think this game benefits from repeat plays for sure, because you kind of have to get the feel for the way this game was written and how it goes. You know, some challenges are like really hard, like, oh my gosh, challenge five, you know, that's a 5 cost challenge. Wow. Well, I guess I should have thought about that because there's a canyon that I decided to try to move across and I had to leap across it somehow. Okay, or that one is just a really simple action because all I got to do is I'm spying on this thing. Oh, that's a 2 or a 1. But I'm just sitting here looking at it, gathering more information. I kind of should have known that. And you will get the feel from repeat plays about what it looks like. You know, am I going to try to barter? Okay, that could be tough. That could be not tough. Am I going to attack? That could be really hard. That could be not. You know, so they're giving you this information very subtly. So know that going in. That is a big part of how to play this game, is to interpret the type of action and the card art and see how that's going to relate. So that's another thing. The card art is very important in the locations. The details are important. Understanding what the details are telling you is important, you know, and kind of, I don't know, kind of guessing a little bit about, well, what would happen if I did this kind of thing, given what I'm seeing right in front of me, right? And I think that's part of the charm of this game. The author definitely references a whole host of open world style games, both video games and board games, that kind of played into his 8-year development of this game. And you can see that. You can see how he took that entire experience and wrapped it into one. It's not derivative by any means, I think, but you can see the feel of those things in this game, which is cool. I don't mind the dice rolling stuff at all because the grid and what you're trying to do has its own strategy for those dice. So it's like, well, you know, I don't know if I really want to take this action, but I got a lot of things that relate to purple actions. And so I'm going to have a better chance of assigning purple action based dice, challenge dice to these things if I take a purple action. And that'll help me get my card going and do this or do that or do whatever. And I think that that's cool. So that whole mechanic, I think, is enjoyable, along with the kind of choice and consequence sort of thing that you've got going on here. You know, and a part of me says, well, would it have been better if they had given you a range on each card for, like, this could be a 1 to 3 challenge or a 2 to 5 challenge? I don't know. You know, that's probably more information than you need. I think that the author of the game or the designer of the game was really trying to make it more realistic than that, where you're going to find out, but you're not going to find out until you make that choice. And I kind of think I like that better than just having a gaming element to it where I would know what I could assess my risk. You really can't directly assess your risk. You can intuit your risk, I would say. That's the way I look at it. So if all that sounds cool to you, then this is a great game for you, because the story, they're little snippets, okay? This is like playing some other games where they give you a little bit of information here and there. But it all kind of goes along the lines of like, well, I'm trying to figure out how to do this specific overarching goal or overarching mission. Well, where do I do that? Well, how do I do that? Okay, well, maybe let's say I need to upgrade this or I need to acquire that. Well, where might that be? I don't know. All right, well, let's start looking around. Okay, I go to one location. Do I see anything that kind of looks like I might be able to find here? I'm not sure, but I get this. If I look over these mountains, maybe there's something in the mountains over on that side of the card that'd be better than something over in the desert on this side of the card, or the forest on that side of the card, or whatever. So you're like trying to figure that kind of stuff out, and I think that's cool. I really think that is a unique thing for me. And the other thing I would say about that, and other games do that too, but they have also a little bit more of like a convoluted mechanic to it. And the first game that comes to mind, I think, is Sleeping Gods. Sleeping Gods was similar in the fact of that sort of style of I read an entry from a logbook and see what happens. I read an entry and I see what happens. But there was a bunch of stuff that bogged that game down. There was the combat and the items and the fiddliness and everything else. A lot of that is stripped right out of this, which I think actually is good because it focuses the experience on more of that exploration and narrative. And it's a more pure and focused game based on that. And maybe it doesn't tell such a overarching story. I don't know, because I've only played a little bit, right? I've definitely finished the games and I've seen what happens and I've got a feel for it, but I wanted to get my first impressions out here before too long. So it is less of a gamer's game, like something like Sleeping Gods, where you're doing a lot of dice rolling and a lot of resource conversions and this and that. And it's more about that exploration and experience. And I think there's a charm there. And so I think if you like that kind of thing, if you like exploring the unknown, you're going to like this game. Okay. And it is not a very hard game to learn, nor is it a hard game to play. The 8 steps you take to resolve what you're doing is literally right here. And for the most part, this will get you through. You can read the rule book once, I think, and kind of start playing, and the rest falls in line. Yes, there are some specific things you probably need to know, but even if you didn't know them, it wouldn't detract from your experience almost at all. And they have a glossary where you can find that. They just say, if you need to look at it, fine, but don't just run to it. They really want to push you to just take the game at face value and kind of make it your own. And I think that is really cool. I think it's cool. So there's a lot of books, right? There's a lot of content. These are just your decision books. And then there's the Book of Secrets, where it's kind of like more like resolution, and there's other things. So there's a lot here, but I think it's worth it if you like this style of game. This is not a gamey game. It is an exploration game. It's a narrative adventure, so to speak. It's a choose your own adventure kind of feel. So I think I hit that pretty hard. That is what I think about it. I do like the game. I'm looking forward to playing it again. As soon as I lost, I'm like, I feel like playing it again. I'm going to try something else. We're going to land in a different spot. We're going to see what happens. Now that I have an idea about the writing style, maybe I'll make better decisions. Maybe I can get further along, etc. And I think that's cool. That's a good sign, in my opinion, of a game when I'm not done playing it and I am finished. That means I want to pull it off. So I could see maybe there's ways it would drag, but right now that is not for me. Right now I'm excited to give it another shot. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. I hope this was an informative video. It was spoiler free as far as I could make it. And I hope that helps you decide, is this a game you want to put in your collection or one you'd rather just turn the page on and pass? So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Whatever you do in the future, I really hope you have a fantastic time doing it. Take it easy.